So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to talk about a concept that is more or less dead, at least in its pure form. So there used to be, and when I say used to be, I know that ladies' night still exists, but it's been really kind of scaled back in a lot of ways. And ladies' night these days is, maybe discounted drinks for just a couple of hours. It could possibly still be free drinks for a couple of hours. But ladies' night back in the day when it was first conceived, from this marketing standpoint, was women could come in and drink all they wanted all night long. Now, I'm not quite old enough to experience this in its purest form. This started in the early 90s, and it's really interesting because you can learn about marketing from also this as a really nice example of how something used to work, and for the most part, it just simply doesn't work anymore. Part of that has to do with product, and part of that has to do with price, interestingly enough. Two of the four P's of marketing, not to get all corny on you. So the concept was really simple. So you get women to come out, drink for free the whole night, and when women are around, what happens? Since men are pigs, men are going to flock to those bars as well, right? So the women drank for free, the men had to pay, and this was essentially a subsidized pricing model. Subsidized in the sense that, it was free for women, not discounted for women. Now, I'm not going to get into the, sociological aspects of this, even though I'm half sociologist. This is a marketing video. So, there's lots of different things that I could say that I want to say, but I'm not going to say, because that's really not the point of this. However you feel about ladies' night, if you are a guy or a lady, that's fine. Now, there were a few things that were kind of interesting about ladies' night. So there was a good group of women. When I say group of women, I'm talking about a good percentage of overall women who would go to ladies' night, party, have a great time with their girlfriends, not ever give a damn about any guy that was there, and they would just sort of do all their drinking and leave. And remember, so if you're getting free drinks from the bar and you're with your girlfriends, you don't have to talk to the creepy guys that are constantly trying to talk to you, right? Because you don't need them to buy you drinks because the bar is buying you drinks, right? So there was a percentage of women that simply did that. From that perspective, ladies' night really wasn't all that successful. When guys are going to bars to talk to women, and over time, once you sort of get a feel, from a guy's perspective, that this particular bar or that particular bar, all the women, or whatever, they're snobs, they won't talk to us, they want this, they want that. So then they're going to just sort of go away, and those guys are not going to go to those bars, right? So then all of a sudden you've got a bartender who is stuck with a significant cost to himself or herself each ladies' night. So this was a big phenomenon in the early to mid 90s. And for a long time, for maybe 5, 6, 7 years, it worked. It started to not work to an extent for some of the reasons of what I generally call, the back end. So rent began to rise, and that, of course, sort of hit your bottom line. So when your rents are rising, you kind of sort of have to scale back on how much ladies' night you can do, or can you do it for free? Maybe if it was every Thursday, maybe you have to do it just 2 Thursdays a month, or maybe only 1 Thursday a month, whatever that might be. So there's that sort of back end to it. But then there is, of course, the front end. I'm always more interested in the front end and the strategic aspects of why something is going to either work or really not work at the end of the day. The tactical or the operational issues sometimes, of course, are going to get in the way of a good strategy. But at the end of the day, the strategy needs to be good enough that it can stand on its own. And typically what you'll find is the operational issues can be worked out. I mean, this is what, happened with Amazon Prime. Jeff Bezos was telling his people back in 2006, 2007, look, you're looking at this wrong. That's why the numbers are not working out for you. Anyway, so the main reason why this sort of went away as a concept is, and when I did become legal drinking age in the late 90s, it was a different world back then, and I'm not trying to sound like the old guy now, but it was a different from an alcohol standpoint, if that makes sense. It was a much simpler world. People drank beer, shots. Of course, you got a cocktail, but even so, I remember in the '90s, and that's why people that have had me for innovation classes and strategy classes, you've actually heard me talk about Absolute vodka as an example. Absolute was the high end vodka at the time, so there wasn't all of um, the craft beers that we have these days, which are from a price standpoint, $8, $9, $10, $11. So if the price of a craft beer is to you a lot higher than a Miller Lite or something, well, of course the bars are making profits, but the cost structure is also higher. Also, people had like I said, a simpler palate back then. Ladies' night really catered to people in their 20s for the most part, maybe a little bit early 30s too. Not necessarily a college crowd, but sort of right after college, that really healthy 25 to 30-year old crowd. And the palate has become more sophisticated these days. You'll see younger people these days ask for an old fashioned, which is a really classic drink. And an old fashioned is an expensive drink. It's around, maybe an average of $15, $17, maybe even $20, $21. And back in the day, in the '90s, in your mid 20s, it was sort of unheard of to get an old fashioned. You wouldn't do that. It was like, what are you, some kind of, Wall Street executive, or are you trying to be a Wall Street executive, or why are you acting like a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old? We just didn't really order things like that. It was Jaeger shots and beer. Now, of course, people still drink Jaeger shots or Fireball shots and beer, but as an aggregate, it's been different. When it comes to doing a ladies' night that is going to be completely free for all women the entire night, you have a higher cost structure that simply doesn't make sense anymore. And that's really interesting because you can learn a lot about price and how price gets subsidized. So I hope you got a little bit of an appreciation of the classic ladies' night from the '90s that was all you can drink for women all night. That doesn't exist anymore to a large extent due to shifts in consumer behavior, shifts in product in terms of the alcohols that we drink, and the increasing prices and the increasing costs. So send me your comments and questions, and each week you'll get a chance to win a copy of one of my books. Your choice, either my book on presentation skills or business writing skills.